Well, welcome to the Road to Edmond podcast. My name is David Schroeder, producer and director of the film, and I'm excited today to be able to interview none other than Cleo. Okay, actually, it's not Cleo, it's Nathanael Welch. But Nathan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for talking to me about this. It'd be weird, I guess, if I didn't do it, huh?
It would be weird. You're like, I'm one of the co-stars, but I just don't do media. It wasn't in my contract.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So for those who want to know, Nathanael or Nathan?
Oh, that's the $1 million question, huh? I used to say before I met my wife that if I was in trouble, then it was Nathanael, and if not, then it was Nathan. That's what my mom always used to do when I was growing up. Nathanael. That's how I knew I was in trouble. Yeah. But she calls me Nathanael just regularly, so really, it's up to whomever to decide. It doesn't matter to me.
I actually like Nathanael. I don't know. I think maybe because it's so unique. Like, whose name is Nathanael? That's so unique. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I have to say I like it better than Cleo.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yes. Maybe one day people will find out why they named that character Cleo. That has not been revealed.
We'll have to release like some commentary, DVD commentary.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be good. Hey, we are chatting with all the cast and crew and just talking about faith and sexuality and Jesus and life and all that good stuff. And so I wanted to maybe start out by asking, describe your faith for us. I know it's ever changing.
Yeah.
In positive ways. It evolves. But how would you describe your faith or spirituality these days?
These days, I'm sort of in a way, I don't know. I'm sort of moving back, I think, to an earlier version of spirituality, faith that I had, but obviously with a different perspective. I grew up in the Midwest, and Christianity was sort of just imbued in the culture, and that was just you were just sort of nominally Christian, just because you grew up in the Midwest, And I was baptized and went to a Methodist church for a little bit. And
were you baptized as an infant or a child, or
both? I was baptized as an infant, and then I was also baptized when I was like 12 or 13 or something.
You were like just making sure you're in.
That time, as an infant, it was the sprinkling, and then it was the full, immersion. Underwater. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I was like 13 or whatever. And, I don't really I know a lot of people have a lot of baggage around growing up in the church and a lot of horror stories. And I don't really have that because we sort of were in and out of the church growing up. My mom, and dad got divorced when I was really young, and she remarried a few times. So we were always sort of just moving around and never really, with the same group of people. And, so I mean, even though we went to church when I was in middle school, I don't know, I never really got connected with any one group or one church. So it never really was a core part of my identity or my experience growing up. So I didn't really have a difficult time leaving it, exploring other traditions. I remember in high school, I think I took a world religion class or something like that, and got really interested in Eastern thought, especially Zen, Buddhism, and Taoism. In undergrad, I was a music major in undergrad and grad school, and I was a religious studies minor, and so I was able to take a bunch of cool classes that I was really interested in at the time.
And where was that?
That was in Youngstown, Ohio, Youngstown State University, and I was actually at that point meditating probably 2 to 3 hours a day.
All in one span or broken up?
About maybe an hour in the morning and then an hour to 2 at night, usually. Mm-hmm. So that it was usually broken up. I don't think I could have gone much longer at one time. But that was sort of the form that it took. I sort of just found all these different things, traditions, experiences, stories from different people about religious mystical experiences, and sort of just wrapped it all up into something and made it my own. And because I wasn't connected to a community or tradition, like I could do that. I had the freedom to do that. But after grad school, I got connected to an Episcopal church in Youngstown, and started singing in the choir as a musician. They were looking for people, so that's how I started. But then got more and more involved, and really found that a community of people practicing the same faith was something that I was missing, and I never had that. So it's hard for me to say exactly where I am right now. I'm sort of somewhere in between. I'm starting to I think reclaim some of my earlier practices, things like meditation and yoga. But also I desire that communal aspect and element that I was missing too. So I'm not sure really where it stands right now, other than the personal individual experience of faith is very important to me. Something that I like to go out into nature and sort of commune with nature, so to speak.
Sure. Ironically, though, you, for the last couple of years, you've been pursuing a master's in theology.
Exactly, yeah.
In Christian theology, and that has been from a very progressive standpoint, but it's also quite cerebral. You know what I mean? So you're talking about this meditation from a Zen background, but you are a very cerebral individual. Like you study, you read, you write. You're very passionate about that.
Yeah. It's actually, that's been very difficult for me, only because it's such a different way of, I don't know. Meditating is not easy, but it's a totally different experience than like sitting down and reading a theological text. Like it's just very, very different experience for me, at least. And part of the reason for the desire for studying theology, academically at least, was to try to understand this tradition that I'm a part of, that I grew up in, like I mentioned. Where is my place in that? I mean, whether or not I like it, I'm a Christian. I was raised in a Christian world, like I just was. So how do I understand where I am now in relation to everything that's come before me? And this isn't a new tradition, but the way that I've inherited it is unique and different. And I sort of wanted to try to get some perspective on that, try to understand, where did I come from? Why do I, look at the world the way that I look at the world? And ultimately it was an attempt to decide, I think, is this something I'm going to keep, or is this something I'm going to leave behind?
Most people read like a book.
Yeah, I know.
You're like, I think I'll just go ahead and get a master's in theology to kind of figure out if I want to still be a Christian or not.
Might as well, what else are you going to do? But, I did. I sort of just threw myself into it and wanted to try to understand as much as I could. And it was really daunting. I really felt like I came in without a good background in this stuff at all. Most of these people, most of the kids in the class had some sort of undergraduate experience in this. I was a music major. I have no idea what you're talking about. But so the learning curve was quite steep, but I'm glad I did it, and I've gotten a lot out of it.
Now, I feel comfortable asking you this because it's just part of your public persona, your life. But your brother has played a role, it seems like, in motivating you to explore theology even more, and even seeing how your relationship with him has informed your theology.
Yeah.
Do you mind speaking a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that you framed it perfectly. I mean, the experience of growing up with a sibling who was profoundly disabled, intellectually disabled, physically disabled, developmentally disabled. There's so many different terms. It is not, unless you have gone through it, you can't understand it. I don't think it's not. I don't know anything else. I mean, he's only 2 years younger than I am, and I grew up taking care of him and helping him do all sorts of things. And it really has informed the way that I look at the world, the questions that I ask, and maybe from an earlier age than most. I remember part of the reason why I never really gelled with any church community when I was going in like middle school is because I had all these questions about life and about suffering and pain that they didn't have an answer for. And I don't think that they were prepared for me to ask the questions,
Sure.
But living the life that I didn't choose this. I didn't, my brother didn't choose this. But it's just sort of what happened. It's just what was handed to us. And I, because of that, saw things in a totally different way. The way that people treated him or didn't treat him. My own family, the way that they responded to him or didn't respond to him. How could things like this happen? It makes your mind and question things and ask certain things in a way that not a lot of other experiences probably do. So, yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of it early on was an attempt to try to understand him, understand that experience, make sense of this. Why? That was a driving question for a long time. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily a driving question, but it still shapes the way that I approach theology or faith or religion. Because if it's not something that he can be a part of, it's not something I want to be a part of.
Wow. So kind of on to the film itself, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I began to dream up this concept of a film that had yet to be titled. I knew, this was specifically crafted for Trip and you. Did you feel any pressure to say yes with that being the case?
Okay, this is funny. I got to be honest with you, and I don't know that I've ever really said this out loud before, but I remember thinking it several times. I remember you coming to us with hey, I have this idea. Or we met over by the beach. We went down to the beach.
Those were some other ideas. Yes.
Yeah. And you were just talking about random different things. Yes. Yeah. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, wait, we're doing a movie? Wait, I'm in the movie? I don't remember saying yes. I don't remember saying no, but I don't even remember a question being posed about it. It was just sort of it just kind of happened.
Well,
which is great.
I did talk to Trip and say, Trip, here's the concept. We started brainstorming. I said, hey, can you talk to Nathan to see? He's like, oh, yeah. I'll talk to him. I'll run it by him. So then the next time I talked to him, I'm like, hey, did you talk to Nathan? Oh, yeah, he's in. It's all good. He's in. Okay, cool. He's in.
Yeah. I mean, I would have said yes had I been formally asked, but I'm glad it happened this way because it's a much better story.
So really, you didn't say yes. Yeah, there's no reason. But why did you then not say no?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I had never done anything like this before, ever. And it seemed like an interesting, fun experience to, I like putting myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable. And this definitely felt like it was going to be one of those situations. And I don't know. I trust you and Trip sort of implicitly with your ideas and things. And it was a great idea. And I was just, let's go for it. Why not?
Here we go. Well, I will say that I have gotten some comments from people as they see screenshots posted online. They're like, whoa, that guy is hot. And I'm like, thankfully, we have one hot guy in the film. You know what I mean? There's a lot of hot guys behind the camera, of course.
Exactly.
In front of the camera.
Exactly. Well, and I wish I know I told you this and Trip this and everyone, but I started I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be in a movie. I gotta work out. I gotta do a crunch or two or a push up or something. I gotta do something. It was. I mean, because I've been like you said, going to school, studying theology. I don't really have a lot of time to work out. I'm sitting down reading freaking books all day.
Yeah.
And So I needed to do something. So
I think it turned out okay.
Hopefully.
Is that odd? Even in the context of this conversation of questioning faith, sexuality, and Jesus, that I would say you're hot. Like even in the, is that okay for, I don't even know if that could be sexual harassment. I could have just done that. I don't know. Did I just harass you?
I don't feel harassed.
Okay.
I mean,
thank you.
You're welcome. I feel uncomfortable, not because you bring it up, but it's just because I am insecure about
my hotness,
certain parts of myself. And when you're on camera,
yes.
Everyone sees all of the. I mean, they see
all the
you.
Parts.
You can't hide anywhere, and it's very uncomfortable, and it's very. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just I feel like I just want to hide.
Well, you
and so when you say things like, "Oh yeah, Trip,"
you can learn from Trip because he just lets it
all out.
All out.
It's all
There's
out.
actually a lot of nudity in this film. I mean, really a lot of nudity.
Yeah.
But it's primarily male frontal upper body nudity.
Yes.
It is. It's not.
Yeah. I remember the first time you said, "All right, take your shirt off." I'm like, what? No, I didn't sign up. I definitely didn't sign up for this. But
a lot of nudity.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable for me to accept that people think that.
Yeah.
If that makes
you're
sense.
a good-looking guy. Yeah, you are.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So let's talk about the filming process itself. Talk through some highs and lows. I mean, you talk about 12 days of intense filming. It's ridiculous that we did that. But maybe what's a high that you think back on, maybe a low point? Tell me some stories.
So I just want to frame this a little bit. Part of why this even happened was, and I think where it happened, was because Trip and I had scheduled a couple events in Denver and Oklahoma City.
Well, actually, the reason why is because I said to Trip, I really want to do it this summer. And he's like,
yes,
well,
we already have these things scheduled.
Up until this 2 events. And 1 week is in Denver, 1 week is in Oklahoma City. I'm like, perfect. We'll do it the week after both.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Okay. I have stuff going on, but okay.
Right. So it was an event. It was filming. It was another event, and then more filming. So that's just to frame this a little bit.
Ridiculous.
It was crazy because the first day of filming started at 7 a.m. or something.
Yeah, of course.
And we were up till at least 2 or 3 the night before with this event, trying to just cleaning up and everything.
That was not my problem.
So well, it became your problem. Just trying to get Trip out of bed was always a problem. But I think that for me was the low, was not getting any sleep.
Yeah.
I am an early riser, relatively speaking, and I don't stay up late. But I need a certain amount of hours. And I don't, there's some people that love sleeping and they'll just sleep forever. Any chance they get, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to take a nap. I'm not that kind of person, but I do need a very specific number of hours of sleep.
Normally?
Between 7.5 and 8.
Okay. I need between 8 and 9.
See, it's good to know that.
Yeah.
It's good to know. And we did not get anywhere near that amount.
No,
and that part was tough. I was struggling, especially the second week.
There was one night where I think we only got 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because of the Ted Tudor incident with Contessa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was the longest night of film.
That was a 3 a.m.er. Yep.
And then we were up at 6, ready to go, because we had to drive to Oklahoma the next day.
Yeah. Had to drive to Oklahoma. Had to drive 9 hours or something like that the next day.
It was crazy. Yeah. It was nuts. So
it's healthy.
I remember one night in particular, it was when we were shooting those scenes down by the river. I was just not in a good place. I was just not. I was done. I was done.
George was so mad at Trip because Trip wasn't, getting stuff right. And it was when Trip was supposed to spit in George's face as the healing, and Trip would not get it right, and George was so upset. And that was even the last scene we had to film.
No, it was not.
Yeah,
it was really rough. And, I definitely
one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in my life. Not only the 2 weeks were the most painful, but that particular night was from hell. It was horrible.
Yes. Everything that could have gone wrong pretty much did.
But scene is hilarious.
I can't wait to see the finished version. Yeah. I can't wait. Not to mention, like, I only know you and Trip while we're doing this. So the other crew, I'm still getting to know them, and everyone has sort of a different work ethic, and everyone's sort of approaching it a little bit differently. And it took a while, I think, for everyone's personalities to mesh. There was some friction there, which is totally understandable, and it's not anybody's fault. But there were some nights where I was a little bit more abrasive than I wish that I would have been. I'm just going to blame it on the lack of sleep. That's what I'm going to do. But highs, you also mentioned
high. Give me some highs.
The actual road trip driving part, and anytime I was on the bike, anytime I was riding the bike or moving in any way, it was great. I mean, the scenery was gorgeous.
Now the bike. Tell me about riding that bike though uphill.
That's not a good bike for riding. It's a good bike to look at. It looks nice.
Yeah, it's nice. I got it on Craigslist.
Nice vintage bike. Yeah. But it is not good for riding.
Yeah. So the story behind the bike, real quick, for those of you who don't know, I wanted an old bike that would be cool that this Clio character would ride. So I started looking on Craigslist the week before we were to arrive, found one on Craigslist. The guy who sold it to me was the original owner of, what is this, 1970 something bike?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, at least.
Just beautiful. I could not, there's no way I could inform. I said, hey, this thing's going to be in a movie. He's like, oh my gosh, let me take down your information. I want to watch it be in the movie.
That's awesome.
His heart is going to be broken when he sees it just run over.
Sorry. Yeah. It's a, we had to sacrifice it for the art,
Yeah. It's all about the art.
But that scene where the train starts coming down right as oh man, that was so cool. And we got to see the Eclipse. That was awesome.
The Eclipse. Yeah. That was amazing.
Just the scenery, the getting to go to different places, the road trip. I love that. Anytime we get to do that kind of stuff. So
how about the castle, Bishop's Castle?
Oh, that place was weird. Yeah, but it was such a cool place, such a cool location. And even right before that, with the lake, riding past that,
you were this footage I was showing my family, the footage as it comes together, and you're running up the stairs at Bishop's Castle. Mm-hmm. My wife goes, man, look at the size of his calves. Those are huge.
Well, I had to have huge calves to ride that bike because there's no gears. You just go.
Low gear. That's all it is. Yeah.
There was a couple uphill bike riding moments, and I don't think I was acclimated to the elevation yet either, and I was huffing and puffing by the end there.
Yeah. Hey, let's get one more take.
But it was fun. I did enjoy the locations and getting to see a whole bunch of cool scenery I'd never seen before. So that was fun.
Cool. As you think about the film itself, obviously there's a lot of fun scenes, but there's a very serious topic here. What would you want people to get out of the film? Now, obviously, you haven't seen the finished product, which will, that takes on a different flavor the way it's edited. But the direction because you've lived the whole thing. What would you want people to take away?
Well, sort of how I know that my explanation of my faith was sort of a messy explanation. It wasn't very neat, and it was meandering, and I think that's the case for everyone. I almost thought about prefacing it and saying, well, I know that this is going to be a little convoluted and hard. I know it's, but I didn't, because everyone says that because it's true for everyone. You ask anyone, what's your faith journey? And it's always this meandering, wandering sort of explanation, which is great, I think. And these types of topics, the really important ones, are messy, and they're hard to articulate clearly, and I think that a medium like this uniquely can capture that, can capture some of the messiness of it, can capture some of the drama of it, the hilarity of it, and put it in this package that, I don't expect people to watch this movie and like have answers to questions.
Sure.
Like, that's not the point of it. Right. Like, the point of it is to see, from my perspective, and what I hope people get from it is there are other people out there who feel the same things that you feel, who are unsure about certain things and who don't know the answers to all of these questions. But that's not the point of it. The point isn't to have the answers. The point isn't to get this right or have the correct formula. It's a different question, I think, that people need to ask. And the answer comes in the form of the relationship between the two main characters. Like, that's where you find the meaning and the purpose and the community, like I was talking about earlier. Like, that's what I want people to take away from it, I guess, is that the answer to the question is not the right answer to the right question, or I don't know. It's a different question. It's a different question, and it's a different answer than what I think people often expect or want. So
there are two main topics that are wrestled with. If you kind of boil it down, one is around sexuality and the other is around we say faith in general, but almost who's in and who's out. How much does God embrace? How much grace does God have?
Sure.
As you think about those two topics, maybe start with sexuality. Is that even the issue of LGBTQ? Is that something that you were aware of growing up, or was it in college? Take me through a little bit of your journey in regard to other expressions of sexuality.
I mean, like I said, and this may, I know this is a little bit different avenue to start, but hopefully it'll make sense when I finish. I mentioned that my parents were divorced early on, and my mom was actually married 5 other times after that, married and divorced 5 other times. And I sort of have this weird understanding of what it means to be in a relationship, or to be a sexual creature or something like that. My perspective is very different. Having between the ages of, when I was born and 20, having seen my mom go through 6 different relationships. And so there was never any judgment from me about the form that anyone's relationships took, because I saw and lived through some very messy, imperfect, beautiful, but also terrible relationships. So that's sort of the world that I'm coming from. Now, I grew up in a old steel town, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's conservative, but it's also not progressive either. It's sort of somewhere in between. It's a classic purple sort of state area, and they're, being connected to the university and going to school. Obviously, there is a more liberal, progressive strain there, where things are a little bit more open and accepting. But then you also have the church down the street, which does not like those sorts of things. And I think that's what's so unique about that area. And what I love about it is you have both of those things, but yet they seem to coexist in some sort of harmony. I don't know that they would say that, but from my perspective, I never felt like I had to believe one thing or another, that I had the freedom to sort of arrive at a conclusion on my own, and that I would find other people who, believed the same things I believed about it, and I'd find people that disagreed with it. So I sort of you had to learn to navigate both sides of that. You had to learn to talk to people who you agreed with and people who you disagreed with. Okay, so all of that is to say, honestly, it was never an issue. It was never anything that was talked about in my family, in my house, in any circumstances. But I do remember when, the Supreme Court ruling, this is almost 3 years ago now, that said that same-sex marriage was legal in the whole country, I got really emotional. It's sort of surprised myself.
You were angry.
No. Yeah. Why am I so angry about this? Yeah. I mean, I was tearing up, and it was a strange, because it honestly was just never something I thought about. It wasn't anything I ever had to really come down one way or another on. I was able to avoid sort of dealing with that and talking about it. But that sort of, I don't know, I couldn't avoid that at that point. And it was overwhelming in a positive way, like in a joyful way, to know now that there's some, I don't know, movement where things are changing, and hopefully, people can be loved and viewed differently and treated differently than they were before. So,
let's just say, growing up, did you hear or utilize derogative terms like that? I would say are pretty normative back.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, probably only in middle school and maybe high school. So this is late 90s, early 2000s, saying something was gay was a very, a lot of people said that. And
yeah, it's basically like saying it's weird.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I didn't know any better at the time.
Sure.
But once I got to college, no one else was using it. I fell out of, I don't know, it wasn't something people said anymore. And how about calling other maybe more effeminate boys, by a derogatory term? Is that something that was part of your, I'm not asking if you did that, but was that part of the culture of where you were growing up? I mean, I'm sure it was, but it wasn't anything that you have to keep in mind, I was a musician, and I sort of hung around with the art crowd, and,
sure. So they were calling you that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you get it. No. I mean, the type of people that I was hanging around everyone was
very accepting
of all different kinds of people. And so, it was very normal. The kind of friends that I had in high school, even, I mean, it was a really crazy, diverse bunch of people.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm sure that happened. But it wasn't in the group of people that I was surrounded by.
The experience you were having.
Right.
Very, very fascinating. When it comes to faith, you've had a very wide experience. And so as you wrestle with those issues of atonement and salvation, what are the things that you're wrestling with, or maybe you're not wrestling with? I'm just curious about your perspectives or opinions on those things based on the journey that you've been on. And my goodness, even informed by your brother's, experience. And I mean, you think about a conservative, obviously you've thought of this. It just came to my mind, a conservative perspective of well, can he say the right thing?
Exactly.
The right thing. When did you start asking that question?
Oh, very, very early on.
Middle school? High school?
Yeah, at least middle school, if not before. Because, I mean, that just seems like a natural question that somebody who has a family member like my brother would ask. If you're hearing, talk. He cannot speak. Nope, he can't verbalize. Nope.
Yeah. So how is he? Well. Let's just give him the gospel, and let's just pray that his spirit receives Christ.
Right. There's sort of two different ways that issue was handled in my experience growing up in church. And one way was to say that, well, because he sort of mentally is like an infant.
Oh, he doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to. He sort of gets a pass.
He's opt out.
Right. It's like if you were to have a child that passed away when it was an infant before it could speak or anything like that, then there's
up to 11, up to 12.
Right. Yeah. Whatever the everyone's has a cutoff. That's one way of dealing with it.
Yes.
The other way of dealing with it is to say, well, it's on us. We have to preach the gospel to him.
Yes.
And that so it's
Did you
sort
do
of
that?
turning it around. No, I never did. I always thought that was weird.
you have left your brother's soul hanging in the balance.
I mean,
There's still time.
I know there's still time. What's funny is, and I'm not unique in this sentiment, and I have to be careful with the way I phrase it because it can be misconstrued. But when you're around people like my brother, the last thing that you think about is whether or not these people are saved.
Sure.
If people like my brother are saved, that is never a question that comes into your mind.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to explain, but it's it once you experience someone with a profound disability, and I've worked with a lot of people like my brother in group homes and in workshops and things.
Sure.
It's just that's the wrong question. It's just a ridiculous question to ask. It's like, how could you even ask that question? It's so stupid.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to explain why, but yeah, those were the two sort of answers that we were given, and I never really bought into either one of them.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
Yeah.
So I mean, along the same lines with the sexuality component that we were talking about earlier, a lot of these things I just never had to deal with. I just never.
You are now, as a theological student,
exactly,
you're dealing with these issues. So as you come to them, like, how are you addressing those?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think that the thing that I've gained the most is a sense of perspective on the Christian tradition. It's a wide, big tradition, and there's a lot of voices in there, a lot of voices that have been heard too much, a lot of voices that haven't been heard enough. And within the tradition, you can find so many different answers to every question that I think what's most important is that you're asking the question, not necessarily what conclusion you come to, because it changes. I mean, I'm asking different questions now, or at least in different ways than I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So there's room in the tradition for all of these questions, and lots of different answers have been given because things change. I mean, our understanding of human physiology and biology has changed over past 2,000 years. So it'd be ridiculous I think, to take an answer when we understood human beings to be one thing and apply it to how we understand humans are today, if that makes sense.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. The question that keeps coming to my mind is, but are they going to hell? Right? And so your unwillingness to address, the details of whether it's atonement or salvation or whatever is, I see it as this depth of, you're asking a different question than I'm asking.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Today, you, Nathanael, Nathan, Cleo, Welch, are asking different questions than other people are asking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everybody's asking different questions, obviously. Lots of questions in life. But the central question that I have been posed with, and many from a conservative background have been posed with, the crux of all of life is heaven or hell. That is the crux, because that's the reason why, people would say, well, the reason why we exist is to glorify God. That's ultimately what people would say. I still am trying to figure out how to do that and have fun. That just does not sound very fun to me. But then it's heaven or hell. This today I have preached that, right? I have been the preacher that has stood up and said, you're either heading toward Christ or away from Christ. Today is the day you can choose to head toward Christ. And today is, blah, blah, blah. Is that true? Maybe it is, right? That's one of the questions
I don't know. Yeah.
Film is posing.
Right.
And by the fact that you will not narrow that down leads to me to believe that your soul is in danger. I'm just saying, like, you're asking the wrong question. You're asking a lot of questions that don't matter. I don't know. I do think that your brother is a perfect example of the reason why we're asking this question.
Yeah.
Because how do we know what's good enough? I've always wondered that. Like, how do we know what's good enough? Even the once saved, always saved. Like, okay, well, you said the prayer once, so you're in. Well, did you really mean the prayer? Did you mean the prayer 10%, 50%, 100%? How much did you mean it? How much was, what's my part and what's God's part?
Yeah.
I always ask that question. What's God's part and what's my part? Well, from a conservative evangelical perspective, your part is to say the prayer and then follow Jesus. And, well, how much is enough? Like, what's enough?
Right.
And I think it's probably because I'm a performance-oriented person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like that too.
Yeah. We do have some similarities in that way.
Like I want to
Enneagram 1.
I love that. Yes. Are you an INTJ as well?
I'm an ENTJ.
Okay. Well, you almost got it right. Just kidding.
I'm borderline EI, it's
I probably am too. But I want to get it right. And so that's where I just go, I don't know. I don't know how that's working. And how big God's grace is. Is God's grace big enough to embrace your brother with love?
I don't know if we'll see. You decide if you want to leave this in or not, but so I'm sort of just like talking to you right now, not whoever else is listening. But when I was in middle school, I was convinced I was going to be a neurologist.
Okay.
Because I wanted to fix my brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to the library and got out books on neurology and would read all these medical journals because I wanted to figure out what was wrong with him and I wanted to fix him. I was committed for several years to do this.
Wow.
So much so that in undergrad, when I had to take like biology classes, I just aced the neurology part because I already knew all this stuff. Like, I've been reading this forever. I know all this, whatever, it's fine. And it's taken me a long time to understand a couple things. One, that is not an appropriate question to ask. What's wrong with him? How can I fix him? That's the wrong question. And even asking that question, it comes from a specific place. Like, not everyone asks that question in different traditions and different cultures. Like, there's a very good reason why me growing up in the United States of America in the latter half of the 20th century asks that question.
Why you even could ask that question.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And by
other
asking,
people would think demonic, like a demonic force, like back in the day or whatever.
Well, and they used to. And what they used to do with people like my brother is take them out to a field and leave them to die.
Yeah.
Glad we don't do that anymore. Though I have to be honest, it's not much better than that. So that question comes from a very particular understanding of the world that comes from a lot of other things, and that's, something I'm interested in learning about is where does that come from? Why do I look at him this way? Mm-hmm. And not just him, but me and you. Like, we look at the world in a very specific way that we didn't choose, but was handed to us. So I've gotten to the point now where I'm starting to understand the situation differently. So that the question, and when I say it's the wrong question, what I mean is my understanding of the world has changed so that I can't even get to that question anymore. Like, there's no path to that question because the setting has changed. The circumstances have changed so much so that I am taken in a completely different direction.
Yeah. So, like, with your brother as a example / metaphor, there's nothing that needs to be fixed.
Right.
He's perfect.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I would say perfect, but I would say that he exists as a complex being in ways that I never appreciated before. I never noticed certain things before because I saw him as a one-dimensional creature in the same way that I thought of myself and everyone else too. You know, I understood him to be sort of a diminished version of like a normal quote person, you know. But he exists in relationship to myself, our mother, our other siblings, the people that take care of him. Like he is a complex and nuanced creature, just like we are. And, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So the net is wider now. And I don't know. I didn't used to believe that, you know, anything I did could really change him unless I did something very concrete and physical, like I'm gonna surgery or something, or like a drug, you know. But now I don't know. I think that there are other ways of influencing each other and people so that he is impacting my life, even though we're not in the same state right now, in ways that are hard to comprehend. And the relationship that we have is special and meaningful and a lot harder to explain than just like this mass of matter interacting with this other mass of, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Sure. So the complexity of that relationship in a lot of ways is, I would say, I think I'm hearing you say an example and or a metaphor of the way that your mind has expanded, the playing field has expanded of questions about life, salvation, theology. And
absolutely.
I'm hearing you say that there are a lot of strains of Christian tradition throughout the decades that have had different perspectives. And that in the last 75 to 100 years, one perspective has become very pronounced.
For me, yeah.
Well,
I see what you're saying.
In theology in general.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, you can really, there's a lot of books about this, and I've had to read some of them, and they're very long and they're very interesting. But you know, you can trace a trajectory, a line, and understand why how we sort of ended up where we ended up. In the patterns of thinking and thought and what people believed about certain things, and how that leads to, well, then people now think of this about this thing, and then what about when this thing happens, and you can sort of follow that, and so you end up where we are, and you think, oh, well, it makes sense that we think this way, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's only one way, actually, and it's not. Yeah. But we come into the world, and you know, we are sort of, I've been saying this a lot, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot. You know, we're handed a specific perspective on the world, on things around us, on ourselves, and we don't get to choose that. But
later on, you do.
I think so. I think you have the opportunity to question that and to hopefully find different ways.
And usually it's a catalyst, though. Like, so we're born into an environment. So basically it's our home of origin, the time frame that we were born into the world, that includes the technology, the culture, the arts, the entertainment, education. All of that is giving us a particular perspective. And your perspective is radically different than mine. I mean, the home of origin is a huge reason of our perspective on life.
Yeah.
But usually it's a catalyst, I think, that causes us to ask questions. So you talked about, I took this class in world religions, right? When you were in like middle school or high school. Your brother, that's a catalyst. We all have these catalysts that allow us to either, to question what's going on. And that's really bringing it back to the film. The reason why I wanted to create this film is because I have questions, and the film is embodying your questions, Cleo's questions, Larry's questions. Those are really embodying questions that I have in life. And I'm wanting to give people a platform or a catalyst to say, it's okay to ask these questions.
Right.
You know? And
you're not the only one asking them.
You're not the only one asking them. Yeah. And I know that that's not, you know, giving people permission to ask questions is nothing new. That's been happening for, you know, forever, because there's always something to look at whatever is normative or the kind of the what's everybody's generally thinking in culture that others are questioning. So, but to create a film that's questioning these things, I think is timely. I think that the conversation revolving around sexuality and salvation is very timely right now. And so that's the reason why we're doing the film.
No, I love it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know of very many or any at all, films that address faith or take faith as a central theme and aren't completely lame and
and are not trying to sell something.
Exactly. Trying to get you to buy something, basically. Yeah. Buy into something.
Yeah. And I think that people probably, and I've said this before when I had the first podcast episode with Tripp, I do believe that people that are on more of a coming from a conservative perspective will see this film as a effort to try to sell something. I think some will, and that's okay. There is definitely a more progressive slant and wanting people to look at these issues because it's what our culture is questioning. I want to bring up as we close a post that I shared on our Facebook page, The Road to Edmond. If you go to, and that's just a plug for everybody. If you follow us on social media, we're all for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. But this was a post by Brandi Carlile. She's I don't follow her. I'm not a big music kind of person, but this was so powerful, and I just want to read it. She says, "What kind of music does she play, by the way?" It's like folk.
Folk Americana. Yeah.
Okay. She posted this in mid-January 2018. Please join me in sharing your stories of forgiveness. Don't forget to use the hashtag. By the way, I forgive you. She says, I would like to forgive Pastor Tim. I forgive you for deciding not to baptize me when I was a teenager for being gay. It was not so much that you wouldn't or couldn't do it because of the tenets put in place by the Baptist rules and traditions, but because you waited until all my family and friends were present and waiting in the pews for the ceremony. I don't believe you did it to humiliate me. I think you struggled with the decision and simply ran out of time. I think you probably still do struggle with it. I'd like you to know that I still love you and that I understand we're all on a journey together, trying our best to walk through the world with honor and dignity. But what I want you to know most of all is that you did not damage my faith, not in God, not in humanity, and not in myself. The experience inspired me to help other gay kids and my spiritual LGBTQ brothers and sisters come to terms with the disappointments they've endured on the rugged road to peace and acceptance. I think you'd appreciate that process. You've helped far more people than you've hurt, and you helped me too. Thank you. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I read that and I was like, that is so powerful, so generous, so grace-filled, so loving. I wanted to be more like her,
Yeah, absolutely.
That I've been hurt by, and I would definitely want people to be like that to me. So, that post right there, I think, is the reason why I wanted sexuality to be a deep part of the storyline of this film, because she's not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of people that have experienced that. So,
yeah.
All right, Nathan, some rapid fire questions to end with, something a little more lighthearted.
All right, let's do it.
Favorite film?
Oh man.
You don't have to narrow it down to one, but maybe a couple. What inspires you?
All right, so there's this film I watched when I was taking this transpersonal studies class about like past lives and stuff like that. It's called The Fountain. It's got Hugh Jackman in it.
Okay.
It is a wild film, but I love it.
All about past lives?
Well, there's sort of three different storylines that are happening simultaneously, 3 or 4. And that's all I'll say. I don't want to give too much away. But
The Fountain.
The Fountain.
Jackman. Okay.
Hugh Jackman.
Wow. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Watch that. How about, I know you're into music, obviously. What's some music that's inspiring you these days?
Well, Brandi Carlile, that album is going to come out in mid-February. My wife loves her, and we got to see her twice in the past month.
What? Are you kidding me? I just happened to bring that up, and you're like a big fan.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
No, we saw her in Anaheim, and then she played for Jimmy Kimmel, and so we got free tickets and went and stood outside and watched her play again. She's cool. She's a great performer. Glenn Hansard, he's got a new album coming out, Irish sort of singer-songwriter. And then perennially my favorite band of all time, Kings of Convenience. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them at least once.
Kings of
Convenience.
With K's. Convenience is with a K or
No.
C?
Yeah. Okay. It's everything spelled the right way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kings
KOC.
Mm-hmm. And they're from where? Norway? Sweden?
Norway. Yeah. Bergen, Norway. Yep.
Okay.
They're working on a new album. Hopefully it'll be out this year. But yeah, all-time favorite band.
Restaurant in Southern California that you go, you should check this one out. It's really good.
Ooh, that's interesting. I don't, we don't really eat out that much. There's a sushi place in Redondo Beach called the Flying Fin. I think they've got really good sushi.
The Flying Fin in Redondo.
Yeah, but I sort of just I like a lot of the classic places that you get on Yelp or whatever. I can't think of what the website name is anymore, but Eater or something like that, where they just here are the best this type of restaurants in LA. I just go there and they're really good. So I'm not really much of a restaurant person.
Tell me one thing that you want people to know about you as we close.
One thing that people don't know about me. Oh, my
What do you want them to know about you?
So my handle on social media is Nathan Loves Trees. And it's true, I do. When I was in high school, there was a tree in my front yard, and I would climb the tree, and there was one branch that was angled perfectly, just big enough for me to lay in, and I would take a nap up there. I'd go up there with usually Henry David Thoreau, a book or essays or poems or something by him. I'd climb the tree, and I'd read, and I inevitably would fall asleep and take a short nap, and that was... I did that every day for most of high school.
Wow. Does your mom still live in that same house?
No, she's moved since then, but
maybe
I should go back and see if it's still...
My guess is that the branch is a lot higher now.
No, it was... I don't know, maybe. I hope the tree's still up. I mean, it was a pretty old, big tree, so I hope they didn't cut it down or something.
All right. Well, dude, thank you so much for taking time to hang, and... here we go.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Still listening. Congratulations. You made it to the end of this.
I can't believe it.
Conversation.
If this is longer than your one with Tripp, I'm going to be... he's got some work to do.
Yeah, you win.
If he's not as long-winded as I am, then he's getting soft.
Hey, friends, follow us on social media. As I mentioned, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And be sure to sign up for our email update list. That's on every podcast description, and the description there is a link to sign up for our email list, because you definitely want to be the first to hear about podcasts, the release of the trailer, which is coming soon, and pre-release screenings that are going to be happening around the nation. So thanks for listening. Bye.
See ya.